Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is part of how we are celebrating Women's History Month, bringing you great content, conversations, and some learning opportunities. I am thrilled to be joined by Angie Read today. So thank you to everyone for joining, and thank you for Wynn for presenting and delivering this. I'm going to get us started here. So you see Angie, you're meeting her right now. Angie Read is an accomplished communications professional. She's a former VP and partner at a global PR and marketing agency. Her work is not her identity, though. It doesn't define her. She has a passion for helping people. You're going to hear some of that passion here. She's a connector by every definition. She gets energy from all of those that face similar challenges. She loves to celebrate successes, and she loves working on herself to grow and helping her audience grow. Angie's going to share a bit about her health story, but I want to say that she is way more than a survivor. She is definitely a thriver. She was just sharing that last night she was talking to a group of retired hockey players. So Angie has the ability to connect with a number of people and really cheer them on and give them some skills to improve their life. So I'm thrilled to have Angie here today to teach us how to silence our inner critic. Please welcome author and life coach Angie Read. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be here and share this important topic, silencing your inner critic. We all have one, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. Thank you, Lisa, for that awesome introduction. I'm going to talk a little bit about who I am. Lisa mentioned my health story. So yes, I'm a former professional communicator. I spent almost 30 years in corporate communications, PR, and marketing with different brands, also with international public relations agency. And that was my career. That was my trajectory. And I was constantly seeking the next big accomplish and climbing the corporate ladder. And I was all about accomplishments and achievements and what big thing can I do next? I had just written a book. This is 6 years ago. I had just written my first book, and it's called Marketing to Gen Z. I was fascinated by this new generation, and I had written a book about it. About 3 weeks after that, I had a massive stroke. I was 46 years old, otherwise totally healthy, never had a health problem in my life. And I woke up one morning, it was July 25th, 2017, and I couldn't get out of bed. I was trying to get up and take a shower and go to work like I normally did. And I just couldn't move anything on the left side of my body. It didn't make any sense. I was trying to clear my throat. I felt like I had a frog in my throat. And with the noises I was making and the movements I was making, I woke up my husband and he said, "What are you doing?" And I tried to say, "I'm getting up and taking a shower," but it came out all garbled. And he said, "Are you drunk?" And I said, "It's 6:30 in the morning. I'm not drunk." And so he said, "You don't sound right. I'm getting up." He got up, he turned on the light. He looked at me and he said, "The left side of your face looks like it's melting off. I think you're having a stroke." And so he called 911. And I remember laying there going, "I'm not having a stroke. That's for old people. And I'm healthy. I'm sure I'm just halfway still asleep and my body's just not woken up yet." But it turns out I was having a massive stroke. I was very lucky because he caught it so early. He saw the signs. I had garbled speech. I couldn't move anything on the left side of my body, and the left side of my face was drooping. Those are some telltale signs of stroke. And you don't wait. You call 911 immediately because every second counts in stroke recovery because you're losing oxygen to that part of your brain. So I had 2 clots. I had a clot in my neck, a clot in my brain, my right temporal lobe. They did emergency surgery to remove the clots. I thought they were going to shave my head because they told me they needed to operate, but they go up through the artery in the groin and they do a laser guided scope that goes all the way up into the brain. It kind of pokes through the clots and then pulls them out. And I had that surgery probably within the hour of noticing any symptoms. I don't remember how long it was, but when I was in the neuro ICU recovering, they asked me if I could move my left arm, and I was able to lift my left arm just a little bit. And it was almost a miracle because I couldn't before. So I was lucky, and I was able to catch my stroke very, very early and get early intervention. So for me, the physical disabilities that I was left with, I did have to go through a couple of months of intense occupational, physical, and speech therapy. And the speech therapy really helped rehabilitate this side of my face because it was still drooping for a while. Still does, just a little bit, but you can hardly notice it. If you didn't know I was a stroke survivor, you probably wouldn't be able to tell by looking at me. I have minor residual physical deficits, but very minor. I'm very lucky. So that was your 2-minute PSA on stroke awareness and prevention. I was in my 40s. I was 46. And they think birth control pills was a major cause of my stroke. So that's another part of the PSA. If you're on birth control, you're in your 40s, consider getting off because it does increase your risk. A couple of months after my strokes, I tried to go back to work because that's all I knew was work. I was kind of a workaholic. I am a mom. I do have 3 kids. They're mostly grown now, but I was past the mommy stage. So I could work pretty much as much as I wanted to. My kids were pretty independent. And when I went back to work, what I realized was my brain had not caught up with my body. My brain was not ready to go back into the hustle and bustle and the grind of the everyday. And of course, I pushed myself because I've always been kind of a perfectionist and I've always wanted to succeed. And I wanted to get back to my book. It had gone to the publisher, but it had come back with some edits. And as I was looking at the edits and trying to read my words, they just weren't making sense in my head. I mean, the words themselves were making sense, but restructuring a sentence in the editing process wasn't coming naturally to me. So I ended up having extreme anxiety and depression. They're called post-stroke anxiety and post-stroke depression. And they're very common conditions among stroke survivors, but they're conditions that really nobody's talking about. They don't prepare you in the hospital before you leave and start your rehab. They don't prepare you for the mental health crisis that could be looming. It's something like up to 50% of stroke survivors could suffer from anxiety and depression. And mine got so bad because I didn't notice the signs as they were coming on. The signs for me were more like not being able to read, not being able to comprehend what I was doing, but it wasn't cognitive impairment. It was the anxiety and depression taking hold in my brain. And I had to be hospitalized a couple of times for it because I did consider taking my own life. It got that bad. And so I needed immediate intervention and I had to get a ton of help. Luckily, I did get that help and I did work on myself. It took a couple of years of intense outpatient therapy and one-on-one therapy, and also medications. I had to have a psychiatrist prescribe some different psych meds for anxiety and depression. And to this day, I still take them and I have no problem sharing that. My brain needs it. There's a biochemical change in the brain when you have an injury to the brain of any kind, and a stroke certainly counts as an injury. There's still scar tissue that will never repair itself. So my brain is still forming new neural connections around the scar tissue. That's what the brain does. So it's trying to reinvent itself. And I think it's so profound. It's still doing it, but our brains are always trying to make new connections and learn new things and try new things. And that's great news when it comes to the inner critic. So that's about me. At the end, if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. But the agenda for today is let's talk about who your inner critic is, how our brains work. And I'm not a brain scientist by any means, but I have learned quite a bit about the brain since I've had this brain injury. And then I'll talk through my 5 strategies for silencing your inner critic. So first, everyone has an inner critic. I don't care if you're Oprah Winfrey, President of the United States, the highest paid actor in Hollywood, everyone has an inner critic. And that inner critic is that negative inner voice that's constantly judging you. It provides constant self-criticism and doubt. The good news about your inner critic is that it can be helpful because it can keep you motivated toward a goal when you are judging yourself and wanting to make sure that you're doing a good job or achieving what you want to achieve. It can be helpful, but most of the time, our inner critic is not a friend of ours. Okay, so these are some thoughts that your inner critic might be telling you on a daily basis. Maybe it's, I don't belong, I could have done better, she's so much smarter than me, I'm too old. Some of these are mine, And I'm not trying to put words in your brain, but some of these are mine. I'm such an idiot. I'm not good enough. What's wrong with me? I mean, take a minute to think about the thoughts you think about yourself on a daily basis. And even jot them down if you want to, because we can go through some exercises to get rid of them. So where does our inner critic come from? Where does she come from? And I call her she because we're all women on the call, I'm assuming. Where does she come from? You're not born with an inner critic. We're not, as babies and toddlers, we're not born judging ourselves. In fact, that's the great thing about being a small child. You don't judge yourself. You're happy as can be doing all the things you want to do, and you're learning. So you're not born with this inner critic inside of you. It does develop in childhood. It changes how our brains develop. And then we internalize harsh language that we're hearing from all around us. Now, you can have the best parents in the world, but you're going to receive some criticism as you're growing up because you're learning. You have to start hearing the word no. You have to start hearing some negative thoughts to help balance and form our behavior. But also you might be getting some negative or harsh language from teachers, from other mentors or adults in your life. And also as children, we're consuming media. So we're getting negative and harsh messages from the media. And we internalize that. And then that becomes our filter through which we live our lives, good and bad, right? And it makes you think, if you have daughters or if you have children, it makes you think, oh gosh, what I'm doing and what I'm saying right now is really shaping how their brain develops and what they're hearing about themselves and what they're going to think about themselves. I have 2 sons and a daughter. And as I was raising my daughter, I was very mindful about the language I used around her. I tried not to say things like I'm so fat or be down on myself, I'm ugly, or I don't look pretty today, things like that, because I didn't want her to internalize them. But it's very, very hard to do. And so ask yourself this: would you be friends with your inner critic? Would you be friends with somebody who talks like that to you? I hope not. And if you have friends like that, I hope you cut them out of your life, because that's not cool. And we need to lift each other up. Women, we are so hard on ourselves and we are so hard on each other. And I don't understand why we have to do that. But there are some strategies to get you through that and to help get you over that hump. So let's talk a little bit about how our brains work. And the good news is, because your brains are constantly making new neural connections, it's called neuroplasticity. This is the sad part. 80% of our thoughts are negative on a daily basis. And we have somewhere around 60,000 thoughts a day. In addition to our negative thoughts, 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. So if most of your thoughts are negative and then 95% of those thoughts are repetitive, that's a lot of repeat negative going into your brain every single day. But there are things that we can do about it, and that's the good news. First, thoughts are not facts. If you've been through any kind of cognitive behavioral therapy or CBT, they talk a lot about thoughts not being facts. And really, just because you're thinking a thought, it doesn't mean it's true. And most of the time, it's not true. Also, emotions are just reactions to our thoughts. So if we can control our thoughts a little better, we can also control our emotional reactions to those thoughts. And so it's a great way to think about being in control of your own brain and your own thinking. Thoughts are not facts. But guess what? The brain believes what we tell it. It really does. The brain believes what we tell it. I love this quote from Buddha. So you are what you think. All that you are arises with your thoughts. And with your thoughts, you create the world. Think about that for just a second. With your thoughts, you create the world. Or with your thoughts, you create your world. And you can train your mind. So your self-talk is wiring your brain right now. It's getting wired in. It's getting hardwired in. But it's okay, because it doesn't matter how old you are. You can retrain your brain. And your brain, this is interesting, it does not know the difference between what's true and what's false. It just knows what we tell it. So if your brain hears a message often enough, it will wire it in and then act on it as if it's true. That's crazy, but it really works. So there are some consequences of negative self-talk, and I'm sure you have all felt these consequences. But you have a higher risk of mental health problems when you're constantly criticizing yourself and constantly feeling bad about yourself. It increases your stress, which can impact your stomach, your digestive issues, give you headaches, give you migraines. It can do so much to wreak havoc on your body when you're stressed. And it can also reinforce limited thinking. Some of those thoughts before that I shared, like I don't belong or I'm not good enough, those are some limited thoughts. And it can result in perfectionism. I used to think perfectionism was my badge of honor, but it's not as much of a gift as it is. Well, I guess it's a gift and it's a curse, but it can become a curse when your negative thinking continues to exacerbate your perfectionism. Perfectionism really is just placing unrealistically high standards on yourself. And then you'll be very hypercritical if you can't meet those standards. And guess what? There will always be times when we can't meet our own standards, and that's okay. And then negative self-talk can also result in relationship challenges. It's really controlling almost everything about you. So it's important to choose the words wisely that we say to ourselves. So choose wisely and then repeat, repeat, repeat. Because like I said, most of our thoughts are repetitive and our brains will believe what we tell it. So start thinking about words of affirmation or words of comfort that you're going to tell yourself, like you are worthy of love right here on the screen or anything else. And I call these my I am affirmations. And I do 10 of them every morning when I wake up, 10 I am statements. And I say, I am kind, I am thoughtful, I am helping people, I am smart, I am brave. These are some of mine, but I say them, I repeat them to myself over and over and over again. And it really does start to take hold and work. And you start believing those things about yourself. And when you believe those things about yourself, you start acting on them. So just again, if you're constantly thinking negative thoughts, you're going to be miserable. But you can train your mind to be positive and you can train it for happiness. And then once you do that training, these thoughts will come easier to you. And this is not some Pollyanna approach to life. You're not going to be positive all the time. That's unrealistic. It's okay to not be positive all the time. But if you can work on changing your mindset, you can see more of the things in life that make you happy, and you can focus a little bit more on the good than the bad. So just a real quick recap. We talked about who our inner critic is, where she comes from. She comes from our childhood, and then how our brains work. And now let's talk a little bit more about training our minds. I will get into the 5 strategies that I'm going to share today and just a few more tips beyond the 5 strategies. So that's where we are.
Angie, you're getting lots of feedback in the comments. I know you can't see them, but I do want to say somebody, I think it was Noelle, said, you look great and you're doing an awesome job. Thank you for what you are doing. So Noelle, thanks for the positive comment. Angie, people are cheering for you. There's a couple questions in here. Let's see. Debbie is asking about the balance between self-check and negative self-critic mode. So some of those things you were saying in the beginning, how do we know the difference between I am actually evaluating myself and I'm a negative critic?
Well, yeah, and write down those thoughts that you're thinking about yourself. And if they're negative, then that's a self-critic. I think once we get into some of these strategies, that will help too.
I also liked what you said about thoughts are not facts. When I heard that question from Debbie, it made me think about, is it a fact? Right. All right. Keep the questions coming. We will get to those. Angie has promised to save us a few minutes at the end. So we are ready for 5 strategies.
Yes, absolutely. So the first strategy is just to stop. Notice your self-talk. And then what you're going to do, and that's hard. You know, we don't take the time to stop and say, what am I really thinking about myself right now? This is why journaling is so important. And I'm now a life coach to other stroke survivors, and I'm going to start expanding beyond stroke survivors. But I wanted to start and focus on the people that I know have been through what I've been through. But if you journaling is a great way to keep track of those thoughts. And when I journal, I'm used to think about, oh, I have to keep a diary of everything I've done today, or, that's not what journaling is about. Just get a journal, get something pretty. I don't have it here with me, but I usually buy really pretty journals so that I feel good about them when I pick them up. And I open them up and I just start writing what I'm thinking and feeling. And it's important to do that. And then over time, you can go back and look at the thoughts you were having and then evaluate them. It's very hard to do it in the moment, but if you can start to learn to do it in the moment, you can catch them much quicker. So here's the thing. When thoughts are not facts, you want to cross-examine your thoughts. So is it true? Is it really true? And where's the proof? So for instance, if I said something like, I'm an idiot, is that really true? Angie, is that true? Where's the proof that you're an idiot? And where's the proof showing you the opposite of that? I have a master's degree. I'm probably not an idiot. I've held corporate positions my whole career and climbed the corporate ladder. That probably means I am not an idiot. So there's no proof that I'm an idiot just because I feel like an idiot right now. I mean, maybe I made a mistake, but guess what? Everyone makes mistakes. So what I'm doing is I'm cross-examining the thought. And would it hold up in a court of law? Ask yourself that. So is it absolutely true? Or can you see the thought in a different way? And then look at the thought and ask yourself how the thought makes you feel. If it makes you feel like a down in the dumps loser, then that's not a good thought to have. And notice the storylines that you're telling yourself. One of my storylines was before, when I went back to work the first time, was my storyline was, I have brain damage. I'm just not as smart or as good as I was before. But really, that wasn't true. I was proving myself day after day that wasn't true. I was able to do my job, not as quick as before, but I was able to do my job. So I noticed that storyline and I changed that storyline, that my brain works perfectly. My brain is healing itself. I am able to do hard things again. And then another thing you want to do is ask yourself, what would it be like if you didn't hold this belief? So another one, so many of us women critique our bodies, right? We might say we're too fat, we're too skinny, we're too short, we're too tall, we're too something. And then just imagine if you didn't hold that belief, how you would feel about yourself. And then start to think about changing that belief and restructuring it in a different way. All right, strategy number 2. You can reposition your inner critic. This is kind of a fun one. So think about where your inner critic's voice is coming from. Is it inside your head or body? Is it outside of you? Is it in the front or back of you? Is it close or far away? And is it pointing away from you or pointing to you? Either way, imagine that it's pointed away from you. Imagine these two women on these benches were sitting on the same bench. And one of the women was like, okay, I'm having too many negative thoughts. So I'm going to, and you could almost personify it, that this other woman on the bench was your negative thoughts. And you go, okay, she's got to go sit on this other bench. She's too close to me. I need to reposition her. And then try moving it even further and further away from you in your mind's eye. Try different locations or differences, or even different ways that the voice is talking to you. And then ask yourself, after you've done this, how does it feel now when she's talking to you? Another kind of fun way to do this is imagine your inner voice has just a crazy voice. Maybe she sounds like, I don't know, Lucille Ball, or maybe she sounds just crazy and she's funny, or she sounds like Tweety Bird or something. Give her a funny voice. Or imagine that she's singing these negative thoughts to you in kind of a cartoony way. And then it'll help you rethink how those thoughts are playing in your mind. But you're in control of this inner voice and how she sounds. And you are not your inner voice. That's another thing I wanted to say. You are not her. Well, I'm getting there. Sorry, strategy 3. Give her a nickname. Here's a picture of Debbie Downer from Saturday Night Live. You all probably remember when Rachel Dratch played this character, but it was so funny. Whenever she came on a scene, she brought everyone down because she was, everything was negative. So give your inner voice a nickname. Think about her in a different way. Think of the worst name you could give her. And then picture her as unfriendly and someone you'd never be friends with. Because in reality, if someone was telling you this, talking to you like this every day, you would not be friends with her. And the important thing is, you are not her. She is not you. Detach yourself from this negative inner critic. Let her come along for the ride, but put her in her place, because you're never going to completely silence her. Let's face it, we're going to have her with us for the rest of our lives because she's been with us for our entire lives, but put her in her place. I like to think about, where is her seat in the car? So I picture myself driving down the road. I'm in the driver's seat. I'm in the driver's seat of my life. Anxiety, depression, self-critique can come along for the ride, but they're in the back seat. I don't let them sit in the passenger seat. The passenger seat I reserve for self-confidence, for self-love, and just for control, and all of the other things that are going to impact how I live my life. My passenger seat is filled with my values, what I really value in life. So really, really think about those things and try to reposition your inner critic, because she doesn't have to live right smack inside your brain all the time. And let her come along for the ride, but don't let her be in the driver's seat or even the passenger seat, because she'll influence you too much if she's in the passenger seat of your life. Strategy number 4, stop comparing. Stop comparing yourself to everybody else. We are all our own unique individual human beings, and that's beautiful. They say comparison is the thief of joy, because it really is the thief of joy. And then comparing yourself to others will create feelings of either inferiority or superiority. And neither of those are good things to feel. You don't want to feel like you're better than somebody, certainly, but be better than yourself. Be better than you were yesterday. That's what you want to compare yourself to. And also, when you're comparing yourself to others, you're really likely comparing your inside to their outside. Think about social media, for instance. People don't post the crap of their lives on social media. They filter it and they post the positive. You don't want to take a picture of yourself unless you look your best. So when you're looking at other people's lives on social media, remember that's the filtered view that you're getting most of the time. Most people don't just put the unfiltered view out there. So if you're comparing yourself to everyone else's outside, you're comparing your inside to their outside, you're doing yourself a disservice. And what good does comparison do anyway? So what if somebody is richer and has a bigger house or drives a nicer car? Who cares? Who cares? Is their life happier? Is their life better? Probably not. You don't know what their inner critic is telling them. Every person you come across every day is probably thinking something negative about themselves, or having negative thoughts about their job or their job security or the assignment that they turned in yesterday, or whatever. It's always happening. So just stop comparing. And then strategy number 5, and this one you've probably been familiar with or been hearing a lot about lately, but it's really practicing gratitude. This is more than just saying thank you. This is practicing gratitude as a practice throughout your day. That's why they say practice. Practicing gratitude every day will move you forward on your path in life. It will get you to your values, align you in your values, help you reach your higher purpose. It turns what you have into abundance. So you might feel like you have something little, or you might have little, but it turns it into having something abundant. So you feel grateful for what you have. And it's, like I said, it's so much more than saying thank you. And it changes your perspective of the world. One thing I do every single day that my career coach taught me is practicing gratitude every day, and to slow way down, slow your brain down. So what I do is I do 10 minutes of meditation and mindfulness every single morning. I wake up, I don't turn on my phone right away. Well, I do, because I like, my meditation is on my app. I do guided meditations on my apps on my phone, but I don't look at email. I don't look at Facebook until I'm done with this practice that I'm telling you about. So 10 minutes of slowing down my brain and being mindful and meditating. And then I write down 10 things I'm grateful for. And then I write down my 10 self-affirmations or I am statements. And some people say, write down 3 things a day. Well, challenge yourself, write down more, because there's always, always more. So I write down 10 things every single day. And sometimes I just keep going and I write down 11 or 12. And it can be simple things. It doesn't have to be huge things. So my gratitudes usually every day consist of: I'm grateful for sunshine. I'm grateful for warmer spring weather. I'm grateful for my husband and our marriage. I'm grateful for my kids and their health, happiness, and safety. That's kind of my daily ones. And then usually I'm grateful for my opportunities. I'm grateful for my health, my mental and physical health, because I had such horrible mental health problems after my strokes and went to the depths of despair. Now I know the difference between having strong, stable mental health and being in crisis. And every day that I wake up without feeling like I have a ton of bricks on my chest, or every day that I wake up and I get out of bed without worrying what's going to happen after I get out of bed, those days I'm grateful. Those things I'm grateful for. So if you do this repeatedly, I promise you it will change your outlook on the world and change how you feel about yourself. It really will. And then just a few more tips as I'm finishing up here. One thing I like to tell people is surround yourself with positive people. It doesn't mean that you have to be around Pollyanna people all the time that just blow sunshine up your whatever. It just try to surround yourself with people that lift you up. It's hard sometimes in work situations. If you're around somebody who's constantly complaining about their job, that will infiltrate your positivity force field. So create a positivity force field around yourself by surrounding yourself with positive people, by not picking up your phone first thing in the morning and looking at news or looking at social media, because social media a lot of times is very negative. So create your force field of positivity around yourself, and then protect that force field with new rituals and new habits that you will incorporate into your daily routine. And like I said, I do 10 minutes of meditation, 10 gratitudes, and 10 self-brags. And that usually takes, 20 or 30 minutes. And if you're telling yourself, I don't have time to do that, yes, you do. We all have the same amount of time. We all have 24 hours in the day. I had to start getting up 30 minutes earlier when I started incorporating my 10-10-10 practice into my life. I had to get up 30 minutes earlier. And you know what? Big deal. I was able to do it. And as a stroke survivor, someone who suffers extreme brain fatigue, that was a pretty big deal. But you start to get so used to it and you become addicted to this positivity practice that when you don't do it, if you have a busy day or say you're on vacation or traveling and you don't do this, you will notice a difference in how you feel that day and how you feel about yourself. And then really it's just learning how to let go of negative thoughts and negativity and practicing self-compassion. Self-care doesn't necessarily mean taking a bubble bath and listening to soft music. It can. I mean, I do those things too, but my self-care routine also includes exercise. I'm a 4-time marathon runner. Before my strokes, I had run 4 marathons in my life. So for me, when I exercise, I've always thought of exercise as push, push, push yourself, go beyond, go to the max limit that you can. Sweat and get really, really sweaty and increase your heart rate a lot. So I've always been about getting these like crazy workouts in. And I've had to readjust my perspective on exercise now. It's not so that I can be super skinny and super muscular or toned. Now, exercise for me is a way to maintain mental health. And it's a way for me to have that positive energy around me, because when you exercise, even a simple walk, and I'll just go on a 30-minute walk around my block or walk around my neighborhood for 30 minutes, it will increase your mood. It's not only healthy for your physical body, but it will increase your mood and because it's releasing positive chemicals into your brain. So exercise is great for that. So is sunshine and fresh air. Get out of the house, get out of your usual, just your environment. Go get sunshine on your face, get fresh air, breathe fresh air. Listen to the sounds of nature. That's also self-care. Eating healthy is so important, and staying hydrated is so important for brain health and for body health. And when your brain is healthy, you can think more positively, you can have more positive thoughts, and you can silence that inner critic. Another kind of crazy one is keeping your hands busy. When I was in the depths of my mental health crisis, my therapist was like, find something to keep your hands busy. Do you have a hobby? Is there anything that you like to do with your hands? And there was just really nothing that came to mind for me. Really, for me, keeping my hands busy is a lot like typing or being on my keyboard. And so that's why I started writing books, to be honest, was a way to kind of keep my hands busy and to get my thoughts out there and to feel like I was accomplishing something or I was doing something. So since my stroke, I've written 3 books, almost 4. My 4th book is just about to come out. So that was me keeping my hands busy as a way to maintain my mental health, practicing self-compassion and self-care. It'll look different for everybody. So what does self-care mean to you? Think about how you can incorporate more of that. What brings you joy? Incorporate more of that into your life. And with that, I do want to say thank you so much. Before I take any questions, you can reach me at Angie@legacycoachingforher.com. That's my website, my coaching website. My books are all on Amazon. So if you look up Angie Read, and it's READ, you can see all of my books. So the first one I wrote, well, I did write the Marketing to Gen Z book, and that's pre-stroke. And I don't get any royalties from that because I was writing that for an agency I was working for at the time. And since I no longer work for that agency because of disability, because I was at that agency when I had my stroke. Anyway, long story. So all the other books I've self-published, they're on Amazon. The first one after my stroke is called Invisible Scars: Stroke Survival, Recovery, and the Unexpected Mental Health Fallout. It's a story about my journey, but it's also about the mental health crisis so many stroke survivors suffer and what to do about it, how you can take control of it, seeing a therapist, getting professional help, sometimes medication. There's all sorts of different ways to take control of your mental health and to manage it. And then I also wrote this tiny little book. It's a booklet because it's only 40 pages. It's called Mental Health Hacks, 10 Easy Hacks to Help Manage Anxiety and Depression. And I don't care whether you've been through a stroke, mental health problems are so common. And anxiety and depression are just so prevalent in our society right now. But there are easy things that you can do to manage it. So that's why I wrote that little booklet. And I kept it short for a reason. I just wanted it to be super helpful in the moment, because when you are suffering a mental health crisis, you can't read long self-help books. You just can't read and process, or at least I couldn't. So I wrote this little short book. So it's just like a quick guidebook. You can have it with you and flip through it and go, oh gosh, I'm having a really bad mental health day. Today I'm in a strong self-criticism mode. What can I do about it? And you can open it up to one of the different 10 mental health hacks and say, okay, I'm going to focus on this hack today. And then I also have one called Identity Crisis: You Are Not Your Career. Because I will tell you, when I thought I could never go back to corporate communications or writing again, I lost myself. I did not know who Angie was. I had not done the deep work to really assess my values and what was super important to me in life, because I'd always been so focused on career success. And so I had an identity crisis that was also fueled by my mental health crisis. But I learned that I am not my career. I am so much more than that. So many of us can become enmeshed in our career. So think about it. If your career or livelihood was stripped away from you today and you could never get it back, or you thought you could never get it back, how would you feel? Who are you at the core? Think of how you would explain yourself or summarize yourself to somebody who says, okay, hey, Angie, tell me about yourself. Instead of starting with the career, what you do for a living, tell them that you're, who you are outside of your career. It's very hard to do. It's very hard to separate ourselves from our career titles or our job descriptions. So find a way to explain who you are, who your identity is beyond your career. It's very important because we never know when our careers will end.
Show us your latest, but you've got a list of questions. So
No, my latest book is not out yet. It should publish next week. It's called Rise: Mastering the Art of Resilience.
Okay, great stuff. I'm going to run through these quick, and I apologize if we don't get to your question today. I'll work with Angie and we'll get you an answer, but looking for some recommendations on a handful of these. So what's your favorite meditation app, or one that you found helpful?
Great question. I like Calm and I like Headspace, but what I use on a daily basis is just on YouTube. I've found a channel called Great Meditation. And I love the woman's voice. They have 5-minute, 10-minute and 20-minute meditations. And there's almost something new every single day. And that's my go-to.
Okay. All right. So YouTube channel. Let's see. Lynn is asking, is it okay for our grateful list, our gratitude list to be the same things day after day?
It is. Yeah. It can get a little monotonous. And sometimes you're like, I should switch it up. But like I said, so many of our thoughts are repetitive and our brain believes what we tell it. So if you're repeating your same gratitudes every day, those are going to get locked in and wired into your brain. And you're just going to be so much more grateful for those things every day. Even simple things, like I said, like sunshine, warmer weather. It's easy to kind of ignore those things and go about your life because we get in a routine. But if your gratitude list, and mine, like I said, a lot of times it's repetitive, very repetitive, and that's okay. Yeah.
So Lynn is off the hook. She can be repetitive for a while, but she's going to have to spice it up. Andrea's asking the tough one. How do you avoid the negative self-critics at bedtime?
What you think before you go to sleep will kind of play out in your brain and work itself out in your brain. So you want to end your day with some positive thoughts. So put your phone away or put your screens away, hopefully an hour or so before you go to bed, because your brain needs time to unwind and get ready for sleep. And so that's one method. If you can write down 3 affirmations before you go to bed, or not even write them down, just say them to yourself in your brain. You could say something like, I'm struggling, but always add that but. I'm struggling, but I know I will get through it. I'm struggling, but I know I have the tools to overcome this. Say those things to yourself before you go to bed, and then they will manifest into your brain, and you'll be surprised then how you wake up in a better mood.
Angie, when you were talking about the cross-examining your negative thoughts, Andrea, I know we're tired when it's bedtime, but boy, that really hit home for me. Is that a fact? Yeah, is that thought accurate?
Would it hold up in a court of law?
Yes, yeah, that's a great one. Couple more questions. So a different Andrea is asking, nature versus nurture. Is the inner critic nurture?
Yeah, like you said, you're not born with your inner critic.
Okay.
So you develop your inner critic from the harsh criticism that you hear as you're growing up. And we have to learn no's as children. We have to learn to be told, no, you can't do that. You can't do that, just to keep us safe. But it's more nurture than nature. We're not born with negative thoughts and we're not born being racist. We're not born being hypocritical. We learn those traits.
Okay, there's a couple more, but I'm going to cheat and I'm going to ask you my question as our final question. How long do I have to do this before I start to see results? If I am an immediate gratification, tell me how long I need to stick with my 3 10s in the morning or my examining my self thoughts. When am I going to see a difference?
Well, I know we all want progress immediately. We all want to fix ourselves right now. You might notice a difference that day, but really they always say it takes 21 days to develop a habit. So it could take 21 days or it could be much, much sooner. For me, it probably took a couple of weeks. But if you repeatedly do it, and I started doing my 10-10-10s 3.5 years ago, and I still do them almost every single day.
And Angie, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate the generous time that you've given us.